Okay, now hi, welcome back to this channel. And today we are diving into one of the most essential skills for any ABAP developer, and it is creating ALV reports. So this is a complete beginner-friendly tutorial where we build a sales order reporting tool from scratch, and we are actually going to cover a few things. So what we'll basically cover in this video is one, classic reuse ALV, and then we also cover the object-oriented ALV with screens, and we also cover the modern SALV approach. So if you don't know what ALV means, it means ABAP List Viewer. So by the end of this video, you understand exactly when to use each type and how to implement them in your own project. So I'm going to show you what we are building. So if I go to the ABAP Navigator or the Object Navigator SE80 and the program that I already developed, which I'm going to show you how in a second or in a minute. Okay, so first let me show you what we are building. So we are creating a sales order report. If I execute this program, it has creation date, and it will get data from VBAK table. So if I open another screen, SE11 ABAP dictionary, and if I show you the VBAK table display, so the VBAK table is sales document header data. So we are going to be extracting data from this table, and it will allow the user to filter by creation date. So the date of creation, you enter a range or an interval, and then there's also filtering by sales organization, which is an optional parameter. So you see that the sales organization has value help or search help, and when you select, there's also a threshold for the net order value. So when you select any of these radio button, it will give you the display based on that radio button. So if you select reuse ALV grid display, which is a type of ALV display, and you click on the execute. Okay, I need to enter a range. So let's pick January 1st of January 2025 up to October 8th, and then you could decide to select sales order, sales organization 001 up to 123S. Okay, so if we click on execute, so here we have our sales ALV sales order data analysis. We have the sales document for different sales organization. This is the sales document number, the creation date, the type of document, and the customer, and also we have the net value, and below we have total net value and the currency. So I'm going to show you how to create this, and below here you see display via reuse ALV function module. So if we go back and then select the CL GUI ALV, which is the object oriented ALV, click on execute, we see that we have the same output, and you could see the ALV functionalities here. You could sort in ascending order, sort in descending order, you could also search, you could filter, you could also sum, and all those functionalities. And then finally, if you click on the SALV table and you click on execute, we have similar data and all the functionalities of ALV. So there you have it. This is what we are going to build in this program. And if you are new to my channel and you have not subscribed, please, and you enjoy any of this video and you want to see more about this kind of video, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. This will also encourage me to make more videos, and also the like button. Leave a comment if you have any question, and of course a big thank you to my new subscribers. What are the prerequisites? The prerequisites are just simple. So you need to have the SAP GUI, either ECC, ERP Central Component, or the S4HANA, and also you need to have some basic ABAP editor navigations, and you need to have access to an ABAP development system. And we are going to use this transaction code SE38 to create an executable program, and most importantly, you need to have that beginner mindset ready to learn. All right, so having said that, let us begin. So I'm going to create a new program, executable program. Use Ctrl N to create a new GUI. So to create an executable program, we need to head over to transaction code SE38. So this will create a new program. So I'm going to call it ZALV sales distribution case study 2. Okay, so let's create this, and then we're going to give it a title. Title is sales order ALV display. So what else do we need to select here? We need to select the type of the program, which is an executable program. So you can create different types of program, either function group, include program, class program, module pool program, subroutine, etc. So this is an executable program because we need it to run on its own. So click on save, and you have to create a package. So a package just is a container that houses all the objects that you create. So let's save this in my package. Okay, transport request. So I'm going to create a new transport request. So to create a new transport request, you click on this. So I will say sales order ALV display. Since this is the second program, I'm going to say display 2 and then save it. So now we are using this transport request. So this transport request is important if we need to transport this program to another system. So currently we are working on the development system, and so from development system it goes to the quality and test system. From test system it goes to the production system. Alright, so let's confirm this, and now we have the editor. So first thing you need to do is to go into the change mode. My interface is a bit different because I'm using a different theme. So you can also use the classic ABAP theme, which is the older theme. Alright, so okay, it's already in edit mode. However, if you want to go to display mode, you can toggle here. Let's save. Okay, this is in display mode. If it's in display mode, you can't type anything, so you need to toggle to go to the edit mode or the change mode. All right, so I'm going to start with giving us data declarations and the selection screen. So if you look at, so what do we have here? This is the screen that we have. So this is called the selection screen. So I'm going to show you how we can make this selection screen, right? So I leave a comment here, which is the selection types. Now actually, before you do selection screen, so you have to ask yourself what is going to be the input on the screen. So here we have creation date, and this creation date has interval. So since it is not just a single input, you need to use select options, and this one just have a single input, so you need to use parameters, and you have radio buttons, so you need to group this. Then I'll show you how to create this now. Okay, so we'll start with creating the selection screen, right? You have already seen what a selection screen looks like. So right here is the selection screen. So selection screen is where the user enters its input and make selections on the screen, just like the name implies, right? So if we go to our program, selection screen, down to write the selection screen, what you need to do is, as the name implies, you can just say selection screen. Then we have begin of block. So the name of the block, we can say block B1, and with frame, we need to give it a type. We need to give the frame a title, and in order not to do hard coding, we use what we call selection text to give the title or pass the title to pass the title. And so you can just say text 001, or so whenever you have selection screen begin of, you should there should always be selection screen end of. So we are ending this block, end of block B1. So you do this so that you don't forget that, oh, you have not yet closed the block. So you can do Shift F1 to use the syntax or the pretty printer. You can click on this so it will align your text for you accurately. And yeah, so now we need to fill in what should appear in the block. So if we look at the output here, you see that this is a block. Look at this right here, this frame right here. So whatever we want to appear in this first block is what we are going to put in that code. Okay, so what's the first thing that we have there? We have the creation date. So since it's an interval value, we use what to call select options. Select options, okay, semicolon, then we give a variable name. So if we are using select options, it has to, conventionally we have to start with s underscore, we give it a name, er dot. I will show you why this is er dot in a minute. And then for, we give a variable name lv, that's local variable, lv underscore er dot. And we have to make this field mandatory, so we use the keyword obligatory. So this is the interval for creation date. Now if you look at the VBAK table, let me open a new screen, Control N. So let's go to SC11. So this is the VBAK table. Open this table, so display. So er dot here is what is the creation date, you see. So er dot, and that was why I use the variable s underscore er dot. So since we are using select option, we need to create a local variable with the type er dot. Okay, so what we need to do is to create this local variable that we have here. So I can double click on it. It says global field lver dot does not exist. Do you want to create the object? I say yes. Okay, so it's a global field, it's a global data field, and let's say continue, and then you have it here. So to declare a variable, you declare it with the keyword data. So these are local variable er dot, and then we need to define the type. So the type will be of er dot. Okay, so I want to believe that you already have some basics of SAP ABAP programming. That's why you're here. So the type is gotten from here, data element. So er dot field has a data element of er dot. So when we talk about data element, it talks about the field attributes. Okay, while if you're talking about domain, it's the technical characteristics. So every data element has a domain. So this er dot now, data element er dot has a domain of datum, which is that's the date. All right, let's not go too much into rabbit hole, just follow me. Okay, so that's a VBAK table. So let me just keep it open and we go back to the program. Now we have created the first select option, which is the creation date, s underscore er dot. Remember before, so yeah, type er dot. Okay, so I put a comma here because I want to still add another select option. So we have the second one that we have is the sales organization. Sales organization is an optional parameter. So since it's optional, we are not going to add obligatory to it. So let's do that. Now we s underscore, let's say vkorg for local variable underscore vkorg. So it's not obligatory, it's not mandatory, so we don't need this keyword obligatory. So we need to create this data element. We need to create local variable underscore vkrog, which has a type. So let's check the VBAK table. So the sales organization, if you scroll down, you should be able to find it. VKORG has a data element of VKORG right here. So So our type here is going to be VKORG. So we can put a full stop here because we have finished declaring the data. And this is for the select options, creation date, and let's say this is sales organization, which is optional field. All right. Now let's save this, Ctrl S, and we can do syntax check, Ctrl F2. So there's no errors, no syntax error found, and we can activate this to see what we have done so far. That's Ctrl F3, or you can use these buttons right here. So after activating, we can execute, maybe using F8, or if you click on the more button here, direct processing. And now you see we have ser.vkorg. So you see right here that this is carrying the field name that we wrote in the code. So we need to fix this by using text elements. Okay, so go to more, click on more, and then go to text elements. Right here you can click on selection text. So our er dot is going to be called creation date, and then the VKORG is going to be called sales organization, which is optional. We could do Ctrl S and we save this, we do Ctrl F3 and we activate. Now if you click on text symbols, remember we have for the title text 001, so we need to give the corresponding text to this. Double click on this. Program text 01 does not exist. Do you want to create the object? Yes, I want to create the object. So we can, what name does we want to call this? Say sales order ALV display. Okay, so we Ctrl S, is inactive right here, so do Ctrl F3 to activate after saving. Yeah, so we go back, and if you click on F8 again, you have creation date, which is an interval, and you have sales organization. So if you click on creation date, you are able to select from the calendar, which is as a result of the data element, and then the sales organization you're also able to select. So this also as a result of the data elements that was used. Okay, now next we need to create the parameter, threshold, and these three buttons. So let's get into it. So to create a single input, we use the keyword parameters, and then let's give a variable name p_threshold, which has a type, and then we give a default value of 1000, and we can also make it obligatory. Okay, so Ctrl save. Now this type here is coming from the net value. So net value, if you go to the VBAK table, see net value here. It has a data element of netwr_ak. So we can use that as a type for our threshold. Okay, yeah. So the next thing now is to define the radio buttons that we have. So we can use, actually we use parameters for radio button also. Parameters. So we have three parameters, one for the reuse ALV, one for the object-oriented ALV, and the other for the SALV table. So let's define those parameters. So we say p_reuse. So then since it's a radio button, we need to define the group. We need to group them so that they will be in the same group. So radio button group, we can say group G1, which is the first group, and give a default value to be true. So this means that even if no radio button is selected, the first option is going to be selected, and this first radio button is for our classical reuse ALV grid. Okay, so the second button we need to create, we can say p_oo, which is for the object oriented ALV, and then we group it in the same radio button group as G1. Here we don't have any default value, So we can call this the OOALV. And also we're going to create a screen for this, screen 0100, so that our output will be displayed on that screen. And the third type of ALV display is the SALV, so which is also, there also be a radio button for it. They are in the same radio button group G1. So, and this is the last one, so we conclude with a period. And this is for the SALV. All right, now we can save this, Ctrl S, check, Ctrl F2, and then Ctrl F3 to activate. And then if we click on F8, let's see what we have. So we have the threshold, the reuse, the OO, object-oriented ALV, and the SALV. So you know what we can do, right, to change these texts from the parameters that we used. See where the title is, sales order ALV display. So let's go to text elements. So we go to more, select on text elements, select on selection text. So we need to change these variable names to user friendly text. So our POO, what is it called? Reuse ALV grid underscore display. So we call it reuse underscore ALV underscore grid underscore display. And then the other one, sorry, that was a mix up. This goes here. Then we have CL GUI ALV underscore grid, and then right here we have CL underscore SALV underscore table, and right here should be threshold. So let's save this, Ctrl S and then Ctrl F3 to activate. Always activate this. Okay, so if we run F8, click on F8. All right, we need to activate this also, Ctrl F3. So F8, and then we have our selection screen. Okay, so this is exactly what we aim. There's a default value here, and then because of the X parameter, because of the true value we entered, this radio button is selected. So because of this value here, the first radio button is automatically selected. So in essence, the radio buttons let users choose which ALV type they want to see, and we have succeeded in implementing all three. So now let's go further to giving data definitions and F4 help for the sales organization. So if you think of data structures, so data structures is like telling SAP what our report or the output of our report should look like. So let's define the data structure. So you can select the fields that you want to see from the table of concern. So in this case, we have the VBAK table, which is a sales document header table. So we're going to select the fields from here and then define the data structure for it. All right. So I'm just going to paste it. If you want to define a structure, you need to start with the keyword types, semicolon, then we're going to say begin of, give the name of the structure, so we can say ty underscore db, like database, and we're going to call the name of all the fields. So if we open this table, you can see we want to see the primary key, which is the VBELN. VBELN is a sales document number. We want to see the creation date, which is the ER.dat. We want to see ERZET, which is, okay, we don't need this. We're going to need sales document type, AUART, and then we're going to use sales organization, which is the VKORG. You can actually find them. You can use find, Ctrl F, I believe, Ctrl F, VKORG, enter. So you see, which is a sales organization, and also customer number, KUNNR. So this sold to party, which is customer number, and then also the net value, So net value, which is this, has a data type of netwr_ak. All right, so let's go back to the code and create the data structures for the columns of interest. So after writing all the fields that we are interested in, we then end the structure by the keyword end of. The same name, ty_db, then full stop. So I need my pretty printer to adjust or format the text. Is Shift F1 for Windows users, or you can click on more and go to pretty printer right here, and it makes your text looks pretty. Alright, so we can save this. Control save, control activate. Yep. Alright, so we have created data structures. So basically this is like creating a blueprint for your house, and we are defining what each room, in this case what each field, will contain before we build it. Alright, now we also need to add some user-friendly features. So we need to implement F4 help for the sales organizations field, so that users can search instead of typing code. So if we look at this right here, the sales organization, this right here, we need search help so that when the user click on F4 or click on the search button right here, they get access to the sales organization that already exists in the system without necessarily typing it. So if you click and then you confirm, this is populated by that sales organization, right? So this is done by search help. I made a video about search help. You can check that on my YouTube channel. Of course, if you enjoyed the video so far, don't forget to like and also to subscribe. Thank you so much. Alright, before the search help, of course, after creating the structure, we need to define the internal table. We need to define the work area. So if we want to define the internal table for this structure, we also use the keyword data. So the name of our internal structure is GTOut, which is more like the output, and type standard table of the structure that we just created with empty key. Empty key means that every key is treated as the same. Okay, so this also allows for duplicates. So if you don't use this keyword, then it handles every key as unique. Okay, so we are still going further to define the data objects. So now what are we going to be using for the ALV, reuse ALV object? Let's open this. Okay, so reuse ALV objects, what are the data objects that we need there? So if we want to declare your data, we start with the keyword data, and then we need a field. We need field categories. So right here, so we need a table type. So when we are dealing with reuse ALV, we need a table type structure. We need a structure also that is type SLIS underscore field category underscore ALV. So if you have done ALV, you know that these are prerequisites to use the function module. And so if we're using the SLIS, then we need to declare the type pool at the beginning of our code. So using the keyword types, using the keyword type -pools and then SLIS LVC. So let's save this. So these are the data structures for the reuse ALV that we are going to be using, and then we can also create the data structure that we need for the object-oriented ALV. So right here you can see we always define the data by the keyword data. So we need a custom container which is type reference to. Now this is object oriented, so when you see type ref to, we are talking about objects. So we need a grid, ALV grid, which is of type reference to another object, and we initialized, and then we also need SYUCOM and OK code. So this, since we are dealing with screens, we need OK code to determine what happened, for instance, when the back button is pressed or the exit button is pressed on the screen. It captures user interaction with the graphical user interface. Alright, and last but not the least, we declare the data structure for the SALV objects. Okay, so this is more modern way of ALV displays. So the SALV table is a class that houses all these functionalities. And if we declare the data structure here, so we create an object GO_SALV of type reference to the table type, and we can save this. Yeah, like I mentioned before, we need a search help for our sales organization. If I click on F8, okay, this is inactive or has been changed. Please save and activate. So save and activate. Click on F8 again. So we need a search help for the sales organization through code. There's also another way to create this, which I treated already in my previous video. A link in the description. Have a look at how to create search helps. And also through code is what I'm going to be showing you here on how to create the search help. So let's go back to the code. And now to create the search help, we are going to be using subroutines. Subroutines is like functions or methods in other programming languages. So the subroutine helps create modularization, so you can reuse code snippets within the same program. So difference between a subroutine and a function module is that subroutine you can not use outside its program. Okay, so let's create a search help for our sales organization. So we're going to F8. I need to activate first. Okay, the F for search help. Alright, so now, so at selection screen on value requests for sales organization, the low interval, we're going to perform the subroutine functionality F4_VKOG, changing the low interval. So we need to create the form for this. So you double click on this, say yes, I want to create. If you create it in another include program, then you have to import the include program. So let's create it in the same master program, which is in the same program you're working on. So we created a form for us, which we're going to fill. What happens, so we can just let go of this. What happens when the perform F4VKOG is called on? Okay. Okay, yeah, so we declare the types and select statement. Just for time being, I'm going to spare us the explanation of this code. I'm going to leave a link in the description for the code also. So if you want to get the full code, please head over to the link and download this code. Then what happens when the high interval is pressed? Okay, so this is where we define the F for help for the low interval field and also the high interval field. So what do we mean by low interval and high interval? You see that the fields have low input range and also the high input range. So we have defined a search help for the first low interval. That's why I created a subroutine, which is F4_VKOG, to change the value of the low interval when the function is called, and it will just, users will click on the F4 button and they will see both the code and the description. So that is what the F4 subroutine form is doing. We created the types or the structure. So the structure has its fields from TVKO table and TVKOT table. So the TVKO table, if you double click on this, it will tell us the type of table we are using. So which is the organizational unit sales organization table. So this, we are getting the name of the sales organization, because the first field gives us, we are dealing with the name of the sales organization, and then the second field for the F4 help is for the text, which is a TVKOT table. So if you double click on this, it takes us to the sales organization text. Okay, and this is important because we can make the language, or we can display the text based on the login language of the system. So you can display the text in German, in English, in Hindi. Yeah, so that's how we fetch the text from here. And that explains why our structure for this subroutine has these two fields. So we created a table, internal table, then a table type structure. Okay, the select statement is written here. So basically we are selecting the sales organization and the sales organization text from the TVKO table. Then we do a left join with the text table where the sales organization table, the sales organization field is equal to the sales organization field of the text and the organization name table. Okay, and also where the language is going to be the login language. So we select the statement and store it into the internal table that we created above, lt_help, and we also order it by vkorg. So to wrap it up, we call the function model to help us perform that functionality. So if you need the code, please leave a comment in the comment section and I will send you a link to it. Alright, so if we save this, Ctrl S, Ctrl F2 and activate this, if we do click on F8, we see the select options. Here you can select sales organization, and this name is coming from the text table, the name description. So anyone you select is automatically populated. And so yeah, so you see that our search help, coding search help worked. Alright, now the next thing we need to do is the data retrieval logic. Now this is the heart of our program. This goes way down. So the data retrieval logic, you can do this like this. So we want to get data from the VBAK table. So for instance, if let me just do F8, okay, Ctrl S, I need to be active every time. So if I enter the creation date, the interval of the creation date, and then sales organization is optional. So if you select reuse ALV grid, we want the program to fetch data from the VBAK table to give us the fields that we enumerated in our structure, to give us these fields. And that is why we need to fetch data from the VBAK table to give us these records. Okay, now how do we write this code? So now we use the event called start of selection. So this is an event that says the logic is starting here. We have about 4 events. At selection screen, we have another event called initialization. So if you want some default values at the beginning, you can use the event called initialization. Then you give some default values or what should happen at initialization time. So I'm digressing a bit, but let's continue. Now for start of selection, that's after the selection screen, we want the main program to run, the main action. So this is where the start of selection event comes into the game. So at start of selection, we want it to perform get data. So basically when you are given a requirement, there are 4 things you need to know. You need to ask yourself, what is the requirement? What do I need to do for this program? What is the inputs from the user? So which we have already done, like the selection screen, the sales organization, the creation date, the threshold. These are input from the user. And then you need to ask, what is the outputs? So inputs, and then before the output, you can say get data. Okay, so if you get data, then you talk about how to display the outputs, right? So now we are working on get data. So we need to create a subroutine, like more of a function. So to call a function inside a program, I'm careful how I say this because when I say function, then I'm talking about function modules. so subroutine in this case, because this will be in the same program, while a function module will be reusable between many programs. So perform get data. So in perform get data, we are going to be querying the database. Alright, now to create this subroutine, you can double click on this, say yes, say yes, and in the same master program, continue. So it gives us the syntax to create a subroutine, which is form get data rather, and then here we are going to write the SQL, open SQL statement. So now, because we have the sales organization as optional, we're going to first check if the sales organization is initial, which means the user did not select sales organization or impute sales organization. So I'm going to write two codes here, but there are other ways to optimize this anyways. So we're going to check if the sales organization is initial. So here we can go to s_vkorg. If you scroll up, here is our sales organization. So if this is initial, which means the user did not select any input, then we are going to query the database, query the VBAK table to give us the fields of interest. So we say select VBELN comma, because we are using the new ABAP syntax, ERDAT, that is ER dot AURAT, comma VKORG, which is the sales organization, comma the customer number, comma the net value, which is NETWR, and then the currency. Now these are the fields of interest. So we select VBLN. Now the next syntax will be where are we selecting it from. So we use the keyword from VBAK table. So if we select from VBAK table, the next key will be where? Will be what? The location. So we select these fields from this place into table GT_out. Remember, we created the data types for or the objects that we'll be using. So into table GT output. So if we scroll up, the structure that we created here has a table type. This is our internal table GT out. So that's where we are storing the retrieval from the database. Okay. Now we need to give a where condition where ER_dat, which is the primary, where the creation date actually. So the creation date is our field of interest because the user is entering the creation date. So where creation date ER_dat in s_ER_dat. So because s_ER_dat is the field label for the creation date. So this is the where condition, right? So Ctrl S, and then you do syntax check, Ctrl F2. Okay. Let's see that's here. Okay, it's new syntax, so we need to use the @ symbol here. Yep. Yeah, there's an if statement, so we need to end with an end if. Okay. All right. So now we need to write the else statement. That's when the sales organization is not empty. So say else, the same selection now. Select these fields, okay, into GT_out internal table. Now our where condition is going to be where the creation date ER_dat in at s_ER_dat. Okay, now we're going to have an AND statement. So in the second else condition, the sales organization is not empty. So that's where the AND comes in. So VKORG in s_VKORG, which is the label from the sales organization. Okay, so for Ctrl S, we save this. So we need to end if statement, end if, Ctrl S, pretty printer, and then okay. So if we do Ctrl F2, yeah, okay, I always forget this. So put the @ Control F2 syntax check. So we have, this is our get form subroutine, get data rather, subroutine functionality to get the data from the VBAK table, and we are calling that here perform get data. So when this subroutine get data, it gets data from the table. So now right here we need to create the functionality for when the reuse ALV button is clicked. So write an if condition. So if p_reuse is equal to ABAP true, so perform ALV reuse. So we call on another subroutine that we are going to create. Now what is this p_reuse? It is one of the buttons which is here. So it means that when this button is selected, which means when the ALV grid _ display is selected, perform ALV reuse. So in this subroutine which we are going to create now, double click to create that subroutine. We are going to select master program, confirm. We are going to write the functionality for what happens when the ALV reuse is going to be clicked. So this includes creating the field catalog, calling the function module reuse ALV _grid _display. So this is what this subroutine is going to do. All right. So when we are in the reuse, before we call the function module, we need to build a field catalog, right? So we can also create another subroutine here. This is just for modularization. Perform build fcat _reuse. So this is equal to create. Pardon why it's so nested. Create another subroutine. So this will handle the field catalog creation. All right. So when we are building a field catalog, we are using the internal table GT_fcat, which we created in the reuse ALV object GT_fcat, right? Which is a type of slice, and slice is a container that houses all types of structures, right? So where were we? We're creating the ALV _reuse. Double click on this to take us here. We are trying to build the field catalog. Yeah. Now for reusability sake, normally to build field catalog, you do field name, you do column. So we're going to skip all that, and we are going to create another subroutine. Okay, subroutine that will handle the field catalog for us. So the subroutine, we're going to call it form. Let's give a name add_fcat using, so what are the parameters? p_field, p_text, p_tab name, p_reference field, p_output length, p_sum. So what happens here, we can clear the work area, which is gs_fcat. So in this work area, we're going to say gs_field cards field name. Field name is going to be anything the user enters here, which is p_field. And then gs_fcat selection text. So this is medium _m. This goes to p_text. So the user is going to enter selection text, and it will automatically be passed into the work area. And so we do like that for the other fields. Selection text for long, for small. Yeah. Selection text for small will be p_text. Then for the tab name, for the reference table, for the reference tab name, for the reference field name, and then the sum. Now for us to use the sum, we need to write a conditional statement. So the sum is going to sum the net values. So if there exists a net value, then we have to sum it. So let's write that code. So if p underscore sum is equal to true, which is capital X in bracket. Then we're going to say the work area gs underscore f cards do sum, so that's sum of the column is equal to true. So this will give us the total sum of the net value. So end if, and then we append our structure, our work area gs f cards append to the internal table gt f cards. So we end this form right here, and form, shift F1 to do pretty printer. Okay, why is this highlighted? Capital later. Okay, so Ctrl S. Let's check. Ctrl F2. Yeah, okay, this if, there is still no end if, so let me put end if somewhere here. And if, Ctrl S, Ctrl F2, period is missing. Yeah, okay. Alright, so we have created the subroutine for creating the field catalog. So we can use that here in our build field catalog by calling on this subroutine add field catalog. So we can call on a subroutine by using perform add underscore f cards. So we look at here, if you are calling this, you are using p field. So what's the first p field, which is the field name? So that means I'm going to pass in using, what's the field name, capital letter VBAK, right? And then what's the second selection text, medium p text. So this, the VBAK is the sales document. This is sales doc. And then what's the tab name, p tab name, table name, so that will be VBAK table. And what's the reference field? So the reference field in this case is VBAK. What's the output length? So we can say 10. So sum, we give empty string and full stop. Now this is for the first field, so we can repeat this for the other records or for the other rows. So the second row, we are adding the creation date that, then the document type, the sales organization, the customer number, the net value. So now here we are setting the net value to be true. So net value here is true. So psum here is true, which goes to our conditional statement. So if psum is equal to true, we are going to do the sum for the net value or for that whole column. Okay, so Ctrl S, Ctrl F2, syntax check. So no errors found in our report, and then Ctrl F3 to activate. Alright, we can as well test the program here, use F8. So if you pick creation date, choose this. Now let's choose 1st of January. Choose 1st of January. Choose this up to October 2025. Let's say 8th of October. So let's select some sales organization, confirm this, and then a range of sales organization, confirm this. So threshold, we have not written any code for threshold. So select reuse ALV grid underscore display, then we execute this. Oh yeah, we are not yet done. So where is our, yeah, so the subroutine for ALV reuse, after we do the field catalog, we need to bind the field catalog, and that's where we call in the function module, right? We need to call the function module reuse ALV underscore grid underscore display. So to call the function module, you can use a pattern here, pattern. So we want the function module reuse ALV grid underscore display, continue. So it gives us the reuse ALV grid display with the exporting parameters and the importing parameters. Alright, so we need to commence the importing parameter, and what we need here, we are going to uncomment the parameters that we want to use. And the first one is the I_callback program. So this returns the program name. So we can see SYREPID. So this we don't need, we can remove. And we need IS_layout. So the layout will be GS_layout. And then the field category, the field catalog rather, which will be GT_FCAT. So the rest here we don't need for this program. And then I save equals to A. We don't need this other field, so the parameters. And so then we go to the tables. So the T tab, where is our output going to be stored, which is the GT_out internal table. So the rest here we are going to remove. Also uncomment the exceptions to handle the errors. So we can do pretty printer and write some error handling in our SY sub RC. So if there's some error, we can display the error here, right here. So let's Ctrl save this. Let's check for syntax. No syntax error found. Ctrl F3. Object activated. And let's run this F8. Select creation date. Let's pick January 2025, 1st of January. Then October 8. Select the reuse ALV grade display. And then execute, and voila, there we have our first output using the ALV reuse_ALV_grid_display. Yeah, so this is the first one we did, and you'll see the functionalities of ALV right here. You can sort in ascending order, you can set filter. Anyways, you could do a lot of things here. And then if we scroll down to the end of columns, or to the end of the rows rather, you could see the sum of the net value right here. Alright, so if you have followed so far, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like this video if you have learned one or two things. Alright, so the next thing now is to implement the OO object-oriented ALV grid. That has to do with screen and also the SALV table. So this is one of the simplest ones. So where we're going to implement is in this if condition to check which of the radio button is selected. So I'll be a little bit faster now in this part of the program. So the program will be shared, a link to the program, or you can just say send me a link in the comment section and I will send this to you to get the full code. So right here we're going to write another conditional, which will be an else if statement. So else if this radio button OO is selected, that is when it is true. Then we are going to, because we have to use screen, we're going to call on to the screen. So we're going to say call screen 100. So the reason is that the object-oriented ALV needs a real dimpro. So we need to create the screen. Alright. And for the other buttons, we make it an else make it else statement. So if the third button is selected, we are going to perform, let's call it, the subroutine name should be ALV_SALV. Then we already have the end if down here. Yeah, the end if is down here. So these are the three things that will happen. So when the object-oriented ALV is selected, so we call the screen 100. We are going to see how to create the screen, and then if the SALV button is selected, then we are going to perform the ALV_SLV. So we're going to write the function for this, and we're going to create the screen for this and the functionality of the screen for this. So for the screen, like object-oriented ALV screen 100 with a custom control CC_ALV. So what you need to do, if you double click on 100, it's going to say screen 100 does not exist. Do you want to create the object? We say yes, and of course we need to save before exiting. So what will be the short description? We can say ALV sales order display. Okay, then it's a normal screen, and we can save this. So right on this screen you can see the flow logic. So we're going to uncomment the module status, and we're also going to comment the user command. So for this module status, you double click on this to create this. You want to create it? Yes. Create it inside the master program. Yes. Want to save? Yes. So now we have the module status output. I like to remove some of these things that are not needed. Okay, so also uncomment this. So we can set the PS status. So what is the status of this our screen? We can call this as the main screen, and then we can give it a title bar. So you can call it ALV_title. So let's save this, Ctrl S, and this main will enable us to create the back button, back or exit or cancel button on our screen. So this ALV title bar is optional to create a title. Yeah. So let's also save this, and let me go back one step. So we are coming from here, right? So this is the process before output. So in this process before output, if you double click, it takes us to having the PS status, which is the main. We're going to create some buttons there and the title. And then also process before output, what we need to also do is to create a module to build a grid. So we can say module build_grid_0100. So what will happen before output? So let's double click on this to create that module inside the master program, of course. And comment this. So yeah, we don't need to set a different status for this. So right here we are going to create a container and then initialize. So in this build grid, we're going to create container on the custom control. We're going to create the custom control shortly. So for this we need to create an object using the keyword create object. This is the object we want to create, go_container, and then the exporting parameter is going to be this custom control name, cc_alv. I'm going to show you how this is implemented shortly. And then the step 2 is that we need to create the grid. Create a grid. So that is also an object. We need to create the grid. Use the create object keyword, go_grid. Then the exporting parameter is the i_parent, which will be equals to g_ our object that we created here. Okay. Then lastly, we are going to display the ALV, and we use another subroutine. So perform ALV_display. So I want to create this display functionality, and finally we end here. Ctrl S. Okay, so let's go back one step. User command. Yeah, before I go back one step, let's just finish with what we are doing here. So we need to perform ALV display of the OO. So let's create this subroutine right here inside the master program. Continue. What should happen when we call on the ALV display? Yeah, so this is a whole code on how to display it. Alright, so we have written the code for the ALV object oriented display. The link to this code will be provided in the description or in the comment section. Please just write a comment and it will be sent to you. And so after doing that, we need to put a custom control. So this custom control, we need to create a screen for it, and let's click on the screen 100 again. So right here, on double click on this. So before leaving, we need to add the layout. So go to more, look for layout. Okay, so we need to add the custom control. So look for the custom control right on the labels here. So fill this whole, fill it to the whole screen. Yep. Then let the name also matches what we gave in the code, which is cc_alv. So save this, Ctrl S, then Ctrl F3 to activate. So we've created the layout. On the view it again, custom control layout covers the whole screen. So now we need to implement the back and exit buttons for the screen. So we go to our main, double click. Yes. I just say screen 0100. It's a normal screen. So if we click on the function keys, so this is the back button. So back, exit, and then this will be the cancel. So we can save here, then Shift F3 or Shift F2, Ctrl F2, Ctrl F3 to activate the function keys so that we get back buttons. And then the ALV title, need to create a title. Let's just see object oriented ALV sales order display. Click on transfer, then click on S, click on save. So what else is left to be done? So you can see here that the container name matches the name that we gave to the layout custom control. Okay, and then we need to add the user command. The user command captures the user inputs. If we go to our screen again, screen 100, double click on this, save before going, yes. So double click on user command. It does not exist, so we want to create this. Yeah, so inside the same master program, we can create the user command. So, and the user command is captured in what's called OK_code. So the user command is captured in syucom rather. So we want to capture it and store it inside the OK code. So we use a switch statement. So case OK code. Then when the user clicks on either, let's say, back or exit or cancel, leave to the initial screen, which is leave to screen 0. Then we end our case. Shift F1, pretty printer, Ctrl F2. Yeah, not yet here. So let's do syntax check. The form add LV card doesn't is a form with similar name add F category. So we need to create the subroutine for this. Alright, so we created that subroutine for the field catalog, for building the field catalog for the object oriented. Yep, so far so good. So do we have this functionality? Yes. So let's do syntax check F2. So ALV underscore, okay, we don't yet have this, so I will comment this out and test what we have so far. So control save, and let's do syntax check again. Okay, pretty printer, let's activate, control F3, activate everything, and let's go on to create the last one, the last functionality, which is the ALV underscore SALV. Let me uncomment that. So control and comma for Windows will add comments, control and period would remove the comments. That's a good one. So let's create the subroutine for this functionality. This is one of the simplest ones to create actually. Yep, continue. Alright, so inside this, so we're going to do a try and catch. So try calling the CL underscore SLV table, call on the factory method, and then so what we are importing now is our geo underscore SALV, and then we'll give out, or the output now will be the internal table, the result that we have in the internal table. And after this, all you need to do is to play around with the settings of the SALV table, which are basic settings. And one of those basic settings, we have get all functions. So all functions of the ALV will be set to true. Then optimize the column, and then display settings, like stripped pattern for the rows. And the catch will be to catch the error or the error messages. Okay, so control S, and let's do pretty printer. All right, so can we do syntax check? Control F2. Oh, no syntax errors. All right, so we have done the final one, which is the SALV. Then some little refactoring. All right, so let's test our final system as we've done before. Let me activate, then F8. So if I click on this, let me test. Okay, let's start with the first one. Let's enter creation dates, January 2025, 1st of January up to October 8, and sales organization. Let's enter this. Let's enter onto, yeah, okay. Then select the threshold, maybe 1000. Select the reuse ALV grid, click on execute, and then we have okay, yeah, one thing I need to do is to display, okay, that this is from ALV reuse display. So let's go back to the code and adjust the text elements so that this will display the text element appropriately. So these are the text elements that I'm going to create. In 004 will be displaying by reuse ALV functionality. 46, let me just give 50, 30, 50, then 005, and say displaying by object-oriented ALV 50. Then the last one, 006, so displaying by SALV model, we give the length of 50, enter Ctrl S, do Ctrl F2, do Ctrl F3 to activate, save this, and then we'll go back to our program again, click on F8. So we'll do the selection again, January 1st, and then up to October 8, choose some sales organization, click here, and then up to, let's say, the range, Okay, then select reuse ALV grid underscore display. So if we execute this, you see here the message says display by reuse ALV function. So this is the output when we use the reuse ALV function. So if you are able to scroll down to the end of the column, you get the net sum of the net value. So we have our sales document on the day that it was created, the type of document, then the sales organization, and we have the customer, have the net value, have the currency. Now let's try for the object oriented. So when we click on execute for the same value, now we have the output not aligned properly, so this has to do with our layout. So let's go to our screen 100. Okay, screen 100, double click. So let's go to the layouts, layout. So I'm going to have to remove this, delete. Let me add the custom control once again and see how the output comes. So cc underscore ALV, Control S, Control save. Let's activate this. So activate. So usually if we have F8 and we enter January, September 10 and just leave it blank and select the GUI ALV grid, then execute. So you say displaying via the object oriented ALV. So this is how the output comes, and we have our functionalities here. Okay, so final points. So final point is the SALV is perfect when you need a quick standard ALV without complex requirements. It's like the easy button for ALV reports. And so stay to the end and I'm going to tell you my favorite one and when to use. Now the reuse ALV is best for quick reports and it has limited customization and it's also good for beginners and it is widely supported. And for the object ALV, it has maximum control and customization. You can embed this in complex screens and it has a very steeper learning curve and is best for professional applications. And finally, the SALV, it has the simplest code and it is good for standard requirements. It has limited customizations and it has modern approach. So finally, here's my recommendation. Start with the reuse ALV to learn the concepts, then move to the SALV for modern reports, and then use object-oriented ALV when you need complex customized applications. So I hope you have learned one or two things from this video in how to use the different types of ALV to display your reports. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more of these videos and to encourage me. See you in the next video.